All right, September 3rd from Justin to Cully. I did hear Menners on that show yesterday say that he wants me to change the name again. I saw him tweet it out earlier in the week. Justin is still involved. We don't know what's happening yet, right? We've talked about it on today's show, but we don't know the deal yet. Hopefully he comes back and we can keep the name.
Sounds like he might even be in next week.
Hopefully.
Potentially.
Yeah, so I guess so we'll just jump right into it from a topics perspective, but Justin did come up today because we all haven't talked to him, so we don't know when he's coming back. I think Kirk talked to him last week, and he said, I'm going to take a couple weeks, and the implication was he may be back for next week's first show, which would be Tuesday, not Monday, so that might be breaking news to people. We won't be here on Labor Day. We'll be here Tuesday. But what do you think? Do you think Justin will be here?
I have no idea. I kind of asked in the show. I probably came out wrong. I said, kind of, where's Justin? I meant more like, has anyone heard from him? And maybe this is normal with when people take mental health, like, oh, they kind of go radio silent. They probably should. It makes sense. But it is just kind of odd from my typical employment history. Like, they're just not around. It's just strange, I guess, the idea that but it's probably for the best. Maybe he will come back.
Yeah, well, when you're taking time, I think obviously we're not going to be bothering every single day, but just maybe an update. And, because the last conversation I had with him, which was Sacco related, the freaking nightmare that happened, but he sounded upbeat. So I think he's, obviously he's going through something serious, but he sounded good on our phone conversation that it made me think, okay, maybe he'll check back in a couple days, give me an update on when he's going to come back. But who knows? Maybe he just needs more time. Maybe I read the situation wrong, and maybe what I'll do is I'll check in with him on Monday, give him the Labor Day weekend, check in with him, and then see if that's something he's thinking about doing or not.
Yeah, so you'd reach out to him, like, you know what I mean, where you've been kind of like more reactive. Are you going to, starting next week, kind of be more proactive with that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I want him to make the decision like naturally, organically. I don't know if he's listening to the show and hearing what's coming up on the show. So I'll reach out to him just as, hopefully it's more of it's to check in as a friend, which I should do, and just say, hey, I hope you're doing all right. We're thinking of you, which... obviously we all are in this situation. Then too, you're always welcome to come back in whenever you feel comfortable doing so. So that's probably a good play for me.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, just to check in with them. So, all right, other topics that come, we'll kind of run through it. Other topics. By the way, Quantum Chris here, so I apologize. He was in on Friday. Everybody knows that. You know him. You know the voice. You know the face. So he's here with me today.
We've learned in this show how important introductions are. So.
Introductions are, yes, you're right. They are important. That comes out later in the show. But topics for today. Kirk jumps right out the gate and brings up the Steven Van Sant thing, which I am all over the place in terms of my confidence level of whether or not it's going to happen or not. I know it's an important get for Kirk. I have wavered in my percentage in the chances that it's happening. I am, and I did on the show, I am confirming this thing is happening. All right, I'm just owning it. It's going to happen by hell or high water. He is going to interview Steven Van Sant. Is that fine with you now? Can I just own that situation and we'll just move on?
It's great you're owning it.
Right.
I think it's crazy to make a lock when you don't have any sort of guarantee behind you. I will say Kirk said it's like top 10, top 25 guests.
Yes.
I would think almost like top 5 for him because it's not only the Springsteen thing, but you got the Sopranos element.
Yeah.
Like there's so much that he's done that Kirk loves that I just think he's like a dream. He's like such an ideal guest for him and for this show.
Probably because he's attainable, maybe. Right? Like he's an attainable guest. He does press in other outlets for other things. Like, and I know it's talk shows. We're different than a podcast interview. It's going to be harder to get him than The View or some shit like that. But He is attainable. He is out there.
I mean, he did that smaller podcast and he went on for almost 2 hours.
That's a favor. So that's where the impetus of this whole thing happening is they recorded an interview with Steven Van Sant, tweeted it out. Kirk starts a little shit on Twitter, whatever. I mean, those guys, they're clearly involved in like the fan club, Springsteen, behind the scenes internet world. So they know this guy. Let's be honest. They recorded it and they're probably sitting on it to, just like the publisher told me, they're probably sitting on it till September 28th, if not after. And that's when they'll release their podcast, which likely is going to happen to us as well. So we'll probably record it and then release it after September 28th.
I love how not only is this a lock, now you've already kind of planned out how it's all going to roll out.
That's what he told me. That's kind of like what delayed. I think if I could go back and just like book it, which is probably what they did, I probably should have just taken it.
Yeah.
Because they made it seem like they didn't want to do anything until the book was released. And then, I don't know, it just kind of, we were rapid fire firing off emails to each other. So that's where, like, I'm lost. I don't know where it went wrong. I hope it's just the dog days of summer towards the end here. And I'll call him today. I'm going to switch it. Like I said on the show, I'm going to switch it from email to the old landline. Let's go back. Let's go old school. Let's get on the phone and talk.
If there was a motto or a quote that represents the Cullen era is, I'm lost. I don't know where it went wrong.
I don't know where.
That is imprinted on this.
Well, I'd rather that than confirmed.
On this era.
I'd rather that than confirmed for sure.
That's right.
All right,
Close second.
Yeah, so we'll move on from that. Other topics that came up today, we actually put a little audio from Menners, who did his Australian Minifan show yesterday, and they want Kirk to promote them a little bit more. What was your takeaway from the Menners show and the audio?
Yeah, I think that was kind of a confusing, weird element of the show. But I do like that show. I do wish there were more shows kind of like that, or more stuff on the YouTube at large. I think, Menners and Jamie, I think they do a pretty good job on that show. And I know they have that guy Jackson on, and I kind of like getting the Australian take.
Yeah.
Kirk brought up in the show, like, he misses the rundown, with Ziggy and VD and Red. And I miss that show too. Yep. I do miss a Saturday show of, we used to have Mike and the Minifans and became just the Minifans. But even like other shows, that's what I was trying to push Kirk to kind of let the ban off everyone.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to go very well. He didn't seem to be too compliant on that. But I just think it'd be great if we had more and more content. I know, like, they had that 90 Day Fiancé show.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of that show, like, the actual show, but I like everyone involved, and I like that people are still doing stuff.
Yeah, and it's it doesn't necessarily, I mean, would we prefer it be Minifan content related? Probably, but I also like the idea of Minifans creating content together on an interest that they like. So that's what I think is cool about that show. It's different.
Yeah.
In its heyday, there was 12, Minifan content only shows and only one 90 Day Fiancé, if that was even out there. So it's like, it's kind of good to try to balance it out with, maybe there's a Minifan sports show or a Minifan fantasy football show or whatever. Those ideas, I don't know. I think they're good. I'm with you. The more, the better. I'd love to see some new voices and some new faces and all that stuff on the network. So I hope people know that they can reach out to us anytime they want. If they want to create content, we're welcome. I know he won't open up the floodgates necessarily to the degree that you and I want, but that's that's only a certain number of people, unfortunately, that have rattled the situation a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, some new voices, and maybe some people are apprehensive. And I don't know how many people watch this show, but like, maybe if you tweeted out something like, "Hey, looking for some new blood on the network," I think that'd be a great thing.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that over the next week or so here. We'll tweet out, "Hey, if you're interested in doing a show, if you don't listen to this or don't watch this on YouTube, we'll tweet it out, put it out there," because we are welcoming to anybody and everybody who wants to talk Minifan related content for sure. So other things that came up on the show today, we made 2 phone calls, 2 guests today, Matt Carano and Jerry Callahan on the show today. So obviously from the Jerry Callahan podcast. Jerry yesterday on his show mentioned that he had a couple, what was his exact wording? It wasn't demands, but I forget. Conditions to do the live show after the Colleen Ritzer 5K. By the way, we are, not only do we have a Team Minahan for the Colleen Ritzer 5K, you can go register. We'll tweet that out. We're going to be doing a live broadcast as of now with Jerry Callahan following the race. And this is where it all came up. We kind of started talking about it on the show last week, and Jerry started talking about it on his show yesterday. And he said that that he has a list of conditions that he didn't want to get into, but he'll get into it at some point. And I think it's just, to Kirk's point on the show today, it's probably just like little minor things. Like, let's not get crazy during a charity event. Maybe, is that what his thought process is? I mean,
it seemed to be that he wanted to have lunch with Kirk before, maybe to kind of get Kirk's bearings on what Kirk was expecting from the show.
Yep.
It seems like talking with Kirk today, and kind of how it's been. I know Jerry doesn't listen to the show, but it seems that Kirk just wants to have a fun show after a race. It doesn't seem to be any sort of master plan, or where he's twirling his mustache trying to screw with Jerry.
Well, I mean, you can't. We're going to be outside, right? Like at the finish line. Hopefully it's a beautiful day. It's a charity event. There's a lot of people around. I don't think it's going to be your typical, Kirk Minahan show. It's going to be more kind of obviously a Kirk and Jerry interview style show. Maybe hopefully it can get a little fun just because of the two of them together back for the first time. But whatever Jerry's impressions, how crazy could it get? Let's put it that way. Like, what could happen?
It seems like it'd be a really fun thing to do. And I know, like, I'm going to be running the race. I would love to finish the race and then watch Jerry and Kirk do a show. That sounds like a fun afternoon.
Yep.
So I think I'm guessing it'll all work out. But it was fun hearing Jerry for the 4 seconds we heard him
while he was running, and it's almost like it was in his pocket. Whatever. It was a typical Jerry situation in that moment. So, and then we also brought up with Matt, who was producing the show. I just assumed, just because we've been talking about it for 30 days or so, Kirk and I have, that I'll be producing it. And to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. We're talking mixers, mics, tables. It's pretty pretty easy to execute. But I did appreciate Matt reached out the other day asking if I needed anything. So once we get closer to the event, figuring out all the details of what's going to go on, we'll certainly be collaborating with them even more so, I assume. So that's good. Other stuff we hit on today's show, you brought a game yet again, an SNL game this time.
Yes.
So,
I think it went over a little better than the last one, which was horrifying last time. But I think this one was easier to understand.
Yes. Now, so what's just for the audience here? It was basically 2 SNL cast members per decade, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was good. It was good to get a vibe on like what Kirk found interesting, what people on SNL that Kirk liked the most. I kind of thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was fun. He says my games are too long, but then I'm thinking, like, I don't want the game to be like 30 seconds. Like, it has to have some sort of like length to it.
Yep.
That's kind of why I add in these layers of difficulty, which maybe I'm just making my life harder, which I've been known to do. So
no, but it was fun, and I don't know. I forget all the names that I rattled out there, but if I'm thinking of
you had Joe Piscopo in there. It's a quality list.
The Mount Rushmore of SNL. If we're taking away the decades, I gotta go Chris Farley. Right. I gotta go. I love, and I know Chris Farley wasn't really involved in them, but those Celebrity Jeopardy skits are like the funniest fucking things to me. Norm Macdonald, Daryl Hammond, obviously Will Ferrell got involved in those ones. So that's my peak SNL moments. And obviously SNL today is just, it's not even close. I'm not even trying to be Jerry. It's just not funny to me anymore whatsoever. Yeah, maybe that's an age thing. I don't know.
Well, they say your favorite, Kirk said a bunch on this show, but I've heard it as well. Like your favorite season of SNL is like, or seasons is when you were in high school.
Yep.
It's true for me. Like I was, or maybe a little earlier, like junior high, early high school for me was that Sandler, Farley.
Yep.
But then you still had Phil Hartman there. You still had Dana Carvey there. So it was like that fun mix. Mike Myers were all still there. That to me is the best cast ever. Like that 91, 92 time. Where you're a little younger than me, so you're gonna lean more on the late 90s.
But I still feel like I went back. Like I think it was the late 90s was good, where it was, I'm enjoying it, but I'm also going back in history to watch something. Because when were those Celebrity Jeopardies out? The early ones were like were they early 90s?
Mid to late 90s.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it is true, but that's true.
But that was a great sketch.
Yeah, that's true for everything too. Even like late night and stuff. It's all those.
Yeah,
shows,
when you're in high school, it's more fun. It's new. It's exciting. It's fun. It's fun to stay up late. It's all that stuff.
Time, all that good stuff. Summer, all that stuff. So, all right, that's pretty much everything else was just kind of a hodgepodge. I tried to see if you wanted to make something out of the Tom Brady thing, being vaccinated when clearly he's not. I'm not even trying to like start Tom Brady shit. It's just kind of like, don't we all think that Tom Brady believes that he can beat COVID without a fucking vaccine? I think we all believe that.
Oh yeah, but like to Kirk's point though, like I don't know what else you can say. Like he's lying, he's not lying, but then after that, I don't think there's a lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's true.
I do say though, if you do hate me though, please DM Conan.
Well, no, that's a good sign when it's like right down the middle of they either love you or they absolutely hate you. Actually, didn't somebody, I forget who it was, somebody tweeted out that they took ownership of one of the tweets that came up on the show yesterday.
Yeah, that guy's tweeted. So I wonder too, is like, as you kind of navigate, or at least I navigate through whatever this is, that guy's like tagged me in tweets like every day. So is it like, I'm sure there are there thousands of people that hate me? Probably. Yeah. But is it maybe less than it may appear because it's just the same person over and over again? I have no idea.
Well, the cool part is, and this is just my last piece of advice in that situation, is like the guy who runs the show wants you here every Friday. So that probably matters more than
that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing that matters. So I thought about like, Mike, I know Mike struggled with this, and I don't know, maybe Justin is or not. I don't know what's driving that, but for me, it's fun. Like I think it's genuinely entertaining that like Sheldon from North Dakota's wife hates me. Like some woman in North Dakota was angry enough to send out a tweet about me. That to me is hysterical.
That is funny.
It's so bizarre and weird. So I'm still in this like novelty phase of this. This is like very funny. Maybe in 6 months it won't be funny at all.
True. What is it? This 3 in a row? Is that all it is?
I think this is my 5th or 6th time in, I guess.
But like in terms of when it kind of became consistent when Carabas was out.
Like 5 of the last or 4 of the last 5. So it's been like, about a month and a half, whatever. So it's still funny and new to me. So I'm enjoying it. But it's maybe after a year, it's not fun anymore. I don't know.
Definitely a good run. So speaking of good, I hope this was better at least than Wednesday's show, which was just an absolute train wreck. I should never do anything at home anymore. There's something about that element. There's something, I'm just not comfortable doing it. I don't know. Either way, this was much better. I appreciate you hanging out with me, Chris, here to going into Labor Day weekend of all things. So I appreciate your time.
Of course, you don't want to mention any other chat groups you're in. You're gonna.
I mean, listen, you get added to it. I'll talk to everybody, but I do feel like it triggers him and Mike for some reason. Like, what's the big deal?
Well, it's weird. Well, I think it's weird to talk about on the Kirkman and Post show is about what chat groups you're in,
what? Talk about it on the post show?
Yeah, that's what you're doing with Tim. I think that's what. Kirk and I were like, this is kind of a weird show. You're like, oh, I was in this 50, but now I'm in this 14.
Oh yes, no, that's where it also spiraled because it's like I don't want to take calls on the 14 and the 50 on the I didn't want that, and just kind of because I was recording it and I wasn't gonna go edit out what happened. I was the dummy who allowed phone calls, so it's like I didn't want any part of it. The only thing that I probably set that off wrong anyway was like I brought up the pit bull thing that he did the night before.
Yeah.
That didn't need to, it just needed to be about the show. But either way, I'm always for some fucking reason rattled at home. I have no reason to be. Like my wife knows what I do. She knows we fuck around. There's no reason to be rattled at home, but I could never create good content at home. It's just can't happen. So, all right, cool. That's from Justin and Cully. It is September 3rd. We will be back on Tuesday following Labor Day. Everybody, if you have plans, enjoy it. Enjoy the long weekend, and we will talk to you next week. Chris, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.